If you are a follower of this show, you may have seen my conversation with Lee Caraher. She is the head of Double Forte, which is a global PR firm, and our conversation was all about crisis communications. And during our conversation, I asked her, what are some of the things you should watch out for as you are interviewing a firm to take on your crisis communications? And she shared with me some red flags that I thought were really, really valuable. And it got me thinking about some of the red flags that I would raise if you were interviewing a communication training firm. Let me give you an example. I was talking to a client and they told me about a previous situation where their communication trainer would shoot them with a super soaker if they did something wrong during one of their practice presentations, like said a filler word or something like that. And it horrified me. And I thought, oh my gosh, I know what I do, but I may not know what others do or what others do that I would think is completely off limits. So I want to devote this episode today to sharing with you a little bit about our approach when it comes to communication training, what that looks like, because I also realize that you may not know what it means to go through communication training. It takes many forms, and there are as many philosophies about communication training as there are communication training firms. So I thought it might be worth your time to listen to how we approach things and perhaps give you some tips, some pointers, things to watch out for as you are considering who you might engage with. So hopefully it'll be an enlightening episode in this week's Speaker Tip Spotlight. Stay tuned. Hi, I'm Karin Reed. I'm a 4-time author, Emmy Award-winning broadcast journalist, and communication expert on helping people to own the room, whether it be a physical one or a virtual one. Welcome to Speaker Dynamics. So I shared with you that quick anecdote about the super soaker because I think it is in great contrast to the way we approach any sort of communication training. I call myself Chief Confidence Creator, and there's a reason for that. We like to build people up, not tear them down. So if you are looking for somebody who is going to be super hard on you and beat you down, that's not us. I feel like anytime you're entering into communication training or communication coaching, you're making yourself very vulnerable. And I am very cognizant of that, very appreciative of that. And I want to treat it in a way that it deserves to be respected. And through that vulnerability, that is a way that you can grow. So like philosophically, I'm never going to pull out a super soaker. I had somebody else who sent me videos from a previous communication coaching session that they had. And the person was on video and he was going through his presentation. And I kept on seeing him be interrupted by a faceless person on the other side who was like yelling at him anytime he did something that was, I'm going to put this in air quotes, incorrect. We don't do that. We do offer constructive criticism, but hopefully in a way that it allows you to take that information in and apply it and grow. I feel like if you just yell at people, that's not doing any good. What are you thinking? So philosophically, we are confidence creators. And so if that resonates with you, great. If not, if you're looking for somebody to yell at you, we're not your people. But let me just go over a little bit about what communication coaching and communication training looks like when it comes to speaker dynamics. So we have kind of a tiered system. At the very top of the pyramid are these hyper customized executive coaching engagements. And typically that would happen if, say that there is, I'll just give you an example. I was working with a client where they were bringing in a new heir apparent for the C-suite. And they knew that this person had some challenges related to communication. And certainly when you're at the top level of an enterprise, your communication skills are incredibly important. You need it to have influence and to inspire everyone. So I was brought in to, first of all, diagnose exactly what the issues were, and then come up with a very customized curriculum to meet those particular needs and those goals. It was a very collaborative process. You talk to people who who are around them. You talk to the people who you're coaching themselves so that you find out what their goals are. And then you craft this whole engagement. It depends what their needs are. If it's something where they have trouble whenever they are presenting up on stage, then I'm probably going to do that training at least partially in person, because here's another philosophical difference that you might hear. I believe that you train the skills in the area in which they will be applied. So if you're teaching in-person presentations, you're going to teach those skills in person. If you are teaching virtual communication tools, then you can teach that virtually. As far as content creation goes, you can actually do that virtually or in person. And typically that's something that we figure out relative to the flow of the entire training. So hyper customized, top of the pyramid sort of stuff. Mostly you're talking about senior leaders that you're working with for that. So a lot of C-suite or maybe like just below. So the next step down are these really interactive group workshops. And ideally they're pretty small because you want to create this circle of trust. Very rarely do I have somebody say, I love doing communication training. Most of the time they're like, oh, we're doing communication training and it's stressful. So if you have a smaller group going through it, and that can be, depending upon whether I have somebody co-facilitating with me or not, it can be anywhere from 10 to, I would say, 15 people. And what that usually will look like, it's a combination of learning foundational best practices. There's usually always some sort of content creation element, and then there's always a performance prowess element. I would call it delivering with confidence. And under that category, we teach the MVPs, performance success, which is not most valuable player, but rather the mental, the vocal, and the physical. And we'll do that in these group workshops where they learn best practices, but they also need to come with a presentation, some source material that we can apply the techniques to. So sometimes it's a matter of saying, okay, bring something that you previously did and let's play with it and redesign it. Sometimes it's a matter of saying, okay, come with a topic that you want to speak to. And we really start from the ground up and build it. I always start with content first because I feel like you need to have that in good shape in order to be able to start working on the delivery of it. So you put together your piece or you redesign your piece. That can be from both like a talk track standpoint where you're coming up with like the overall structure, as well as slide design, depending upon the client I'm working with. Sometimes that is possible, sometimes it's not. So for example, if I'm working in biotech or pharma, sometimes they're like, we can't touch the slides. They have been through medical and legal review. We have to keep them as they are. And that's completely understandable. But so content's first, and then we switch into the MVPs of performance success. And I also like to ensure that you're not just learning things, you are applying them. So there's always some sort of presentation practice. So I mentioned that when I do the one-on-one coaching engagements with executives, it can be done virtually or it can be done in person. That's also the same for the group workshops. It all depends where they are going to be communicating. Are they communicating in person? Are they communicating virtually? Oftentimes it's a combination of both. So we'll have some virtual training as well as some in-person training, and we figure out a training flow that makes the most sense for everybody. And we also use kind of a cool tool. We use something that is a video feedback platform. So what that allows us to do is say that you have an in-person workshop. You learn the best practices in the morning. You do your presentation practice in the afternoon. Those participants are going to get some immediate feedback on what they've done. But we like to also record those presentation practices and then upload them to this online video feedback platform. And what that allows us to do is take a look at that video and write time-coded comments of what we see on the screen. So time-coded comments are where, okay, so say like 30 seconds in, you do an impactful gesture. I'm going to say at 30 seconds, wow, that was an impactful gesture because X, Y, Z. And when the participant goes back and reviews their video, as they're watching it run, those comments will come up at the time that they occur. So what it does is it allows us to connect the dots. So it's not just learning in the moment, it's also learning asynchronously. And then oftentimes that is the basis for a one-on-one coaching session that follows up where we debrief on the online feedback. Hopefully people have had time to review it and consume it. And then we also talk about any lingering questions. So those workshops are highly effective, and we have different ways to extend the training so that there's that refresher. Sometimes it's a bi-yearly refresher. Sometimes it's a yearly refresher. There are ways that we can ensure that muscle memory is still there, because if you don't use the skills that you originally used, they start to atrophy. So small group workshops are kind of the second layer down in that pyramid. But I had a situation where, I did those two methodologies for a long time. COVID hits. And then I had people coming to me and saying, Karin, can you train the entire enterprise? And I would say, wow, that's a lot of workshops. So I had to come up with a way that I could extend the learning and have a larger footprint. So we expanded the team, but we also created something called Speaker Dynamics University. So Speaker Dynamics University is our online training platform where we have a whole series of courses. Some of them focus on virtual presence. Some of them focus on meeting science. Some of them focus on content creation. I have a LinkedIn learning course all about making messages memorable. So we have ways that you can scale the learnings to your entire enterprise. And what's right for you? Well, it depends. Depends, for one thing, what level of competence you want to create in your team or yourself. Maybe you just want a refresher, something that will help you to kind of sharpen your skills. Maybe just some sort of asynchronous learning is great for you. Then I'd say, hey, go to Speaker Dynamics University, select a course that resonates with you and take that. Sometimes it's going to LinkedIn Learning and do my Making Messages Memorable. That's great as well. But if you want to have more oversight or some professional feedback, that's when you want to level up to the group workshops. And also what I find is that we learn from each other in that room. I have ideas to share, but also it's valuable to be alongside people who are in your situation as well, understand the company culture. There's always a discussion, for example, if I'm doing slide design, on whether to use animations or builds or not in slides. Believe it or not, that is controversial. And we can talk it out in the room with people who know, what the communication culture is in their own organizations. So those group workshops are a way to be able to make it feel just real world. And you get that feedback from me and you get that feedback from each other as well. And then the cool thing is, within your organization, you're creating accountability partners because they all know the best practices that you learned, and they can say, hey, I saw that you didn't do an unexpected open. I think that you should do that next time. And that's super valuable. And then if you are somebody who just needs a really intensive curriculum built for your particular needs, that's when the one-on-one coaching comes in. So that's kind of the overall scheme of the way we do training. It takes many different forms, virtual, in-person, combination of both, groups large and small. But just make sure that you have that sort of idea in mind as you're approaching any sort of coaching conversation. Things that I would watch out for if you are interviewing a communication training firm, I would make sure that they don't begin with the number first. It's going to cost you this much before they even know what your goals are for the training. I feel like that's really important, that you are getting your money's worth and that you're actually going to get return on your investment. Because you might say, well, I just want a webinar. And the person you're talking to says, okay, well, we'll do a webinar for you. But what you realize is you want to have your team be, able to really transform. A webinar is great if you just want to expose people to the best practices, but I can tell you, you're not going to get transformational change from that. You need to learn best practices and have some application of it and then get some feedback on it. If nobody's asking you what your goals are, that would be a major red flag. Another major red flag, somebody who feels like it's okay to berate your people. I don't think that is the best way to learn. And I feel very strongly about that. And then, of course, if somebody says they use a super soaker to train your team, that would be a major red flag. So I hope that this didn't sound too self-serving. I wanted to just kind of educate you on how we educate others on how to be better communicators. And if you are wanting to dive into this a little bit more, that actually is in this week's bonus content. If you go to speakerdynamics.com/bonus content, I'm going to put in there that pyramid that I talked about, as well as a couple of additional things for you to consider as you're thinking about, okay, what do I really need for myself or my team? So if you want just kind of a quick hit, I mean, obviously, if you go to our website, speakerdynamics.com, there's a ton of stuff on there. But it's a lot of stuff. So I'm going to give you kind of a cheat sheet on the Speaker Dynamics philosophy and how we train. And it's something that we've been fortunate enough to do for almost 15 years. It's crazy. So if you want to go check that out, go to speakerdynamics.com/bonus content. And I want to give a special thank you to all of my clients who I've had the opportunity to work with over the past decade and a half. If you are listening, love you. Thank you. I always say if you're part of my training family once, you're always part of my training family. And I am so very thankful that you all are a part of the Speaker Dynamics listening family. So have a great day, everybody. We'll see you next time.